What's going on, everybody? This is a Roaming Prepper channel. I'm your host, Pete, and I want to thank all of you for joining me today. Today's video is going to be a follow-up on the previous video I made. If you didn't see it, it's called Bad Luck or Small Wars. Basically, are we witnessing a rash of bad luck in the country and sensationalism, or are we witnessing what are called small wars? I would refer you to that video, but just to give you a summary for this one, the concept of small wars is the use of not even asymmetric, but irregular and small operations of various types to create an environment to compel another country or another group to do something you want them to do. For example, the Vietnam War, right? The North Vietnamese wanted the Americans and the South Vietnamese government out. So they conducted irregular operations via the Viet Cong. Now, they had an army, the NVA, the North Vietnamese Army, that was their regular, but those other groups created small wars, small operations, some of which may not have even appeared to have been an actual operation of a military nature, to make life so difficult that ultimately they achieved their goal. They ran the United States and its allies out. Same with the American Revolution. There was a continental army, but then there were the militias, and then there were the other rifleman groups, the Minutemen. The Continental Army fought on the battlefield, but the militias and these other Minutemen, these other irregular groups, they conducted operations, and many of which may not have even appeared to have been actual sabotage or espionage. That's the whole concept behind a small war. It's kind of hard to put your finger on what may be happening, but someone's doing it to cause you or some other country to do something they want to accomplish. Let's talk about what would we be looking for if small wars were actually happening. I'll be right back. Everybody, this is a Roaming Prepper channel. If you're just popping in, I'm your host Pete, and thanks as always for joining me. And as I've always said, normally I premiere videos like this, so I should be in the chat, but sometimes due to work or travel, I am not. In the event I'm not, feel free to leave a question or a comment in the comments below the video, and I will try to answer them within a day or two, depending on my work schedule. All right, so you're looking at these subcategories of things you could be seeing if you have small wars, and then I'll let you guys, this is purely hypothetical, I'll let you guys decide if we're seeing it or not. So among the things you may be witnessing are things like spying and espionage, either a blatant attack or the disruption of transport and communications, assaults on food and water, disruption of amenities, for example, electricity or roads or something like that. And you notice they're all overlapping. And then the creation of fear. Fear is a very good motivator to get other groups of people to do things. So let's kind of go in order. So spying, a good example would be the balloon, these UFO things we're shooting down everywhere. Those kind of examples, like the Chinese weather balloon, and they even admitted supposedly that it was their balloon, but it went off course and all that. Was that a small war? It was more spying, but it wasn't very well hidden. When I'm talking spying and espionage, I'm talking the taking of secrets, the surveilling of important people to know their whereabouts or what they're doing or their dealings. That's a little more difficult to pick out, that kind of subterfuge. It is something that both the other superpowers have done to the US and its allies for years now. Unlike a balloon, which is very obvious, right? You look up and there it is and the people freak out. Other types of spying and subterfuge are very hard to pick out. Hacking, stealing of data, infiltrating companies as an employee so you can obtain access to materials and information. This has been an ongoing thing. That would be a precursor to small war operations, or a type of small war, but more non-physical, non-combative. It's more the acquisition of intelligence to execute at a later date. I cover this in another video about the hacks. They systemically went from smaller companies to bigger companies till they got access to a software company. And then they were able to get into government agencies. They hacked the DOE, the DOD. They shut down the pipeline, if you guys recall, bringing fuel to the East Coast. So those would be examples of a spying small war. And you notice they're all tied together. So the spying gave them the information, and then they were able to screw something else up. Then transport. If I were looking, or I was going to conduct a small war against transport and communications, you'd start seeing phones go down, internet go down. Back in the day, they'd cut telegraph wires. Disruption of trains, collapsing of bridges, malfunctions of bridges, planes nearly hitting each other on the tarmac. We've seen all this happen. As a matter of fact, as of the date of this video, in the previous 3 weeks, I've watched on mainstream media no less than 3 reports of airplanes nearly hitting each other on the ground or while taking off, which is very unheard of. Statistically speaking, I could drive to Walmart and have a higher risk of getting hurt driving 2 miles than flying 500 miles in an FAA-controlled aircraft, unless someone's screwing with something. Remember, Southwest Airlines went down. Everyone said it was a computer error. That's pretty profound. There have also been issues in other airports. They grounded all the planes on the West Coast last year. They grounded all the planes in Tennessee earlier this year. That's the kind of what you would be seeing if that was a small war action. You're seeing the after effects. You're seeing the shutdown, the near miss. Are we witnessing the effects of a small war? Now, by the same token, remember the railroad workers wanted to strike last year. The pilots tried to strike the year before. They were all saying we don't have enough people and safety is being shortcut. So we could be seeing the after effects of corporate greed and a lack of infrastructure investment. But it gets you thinking. So you keep that in mind. Also, food and water. The Ohio chemical spill is a great example of the contamination of water, but it has happened in other places. We've also had multiple food processing plants being caught on fire, shutting down, having accidents. Now, unlike the airlines or the derailments, I don't have great statistics on food plant fires. I do know railroads have about 1,100 to 1,500 incidents a year, including multiple derailments. So the derailments aren't new. The nature of the derailments and the magnitude is kind of new, but they do happen. So again, we could just be seeing neglect of investment in infrastructure and safety, but that would also be a symptom of a small war. You see how a lot of these overlap. Electricity, and I guess it overlaps with the comms. Hacks of computers, shutting down of electricity, shooting up power plants, causing tanker trucks to have accidents. You know, all these could just be misfortunes, but they could also be the after effects of a deliberate action. And again, purely hypothetical, but a lot of the concept of small wars is a lot of the results could also look like an accident. It makes it very difficult for a government or a country or a people to pin down that was a violent act, that was done on purpose, because it kind of looks like an accident. Could we be witnessing that? Yes. But again, the balloon was really blatant. Hacking and stealing of data from universities scares me much more than the stupid balloon. Train derailed, we had a bunch of those, but historically speaking, that does happen. And the workers were trying to strike not 6 months ago because of lack of safety protocols. So again, are we witnessing a reap what you sow kind of situation with the railroads? Or is this an actual after effect of the small war? Food, plant fires. Again, is it neglect, incompetence? They can't find enough workers as a result of the 19? Or is there something more going on? See, it's very hard to pin down. However, in the aggregate, in the whole, when you see all these things happening at once, it starts to make you wonder. Again, Nord Stream's another great example of a disruption of, in that case, it wasn't transport or comms, it was a disruption of the amenities, of fuel, of energy to power another country and to force countries to do certain things. So blowing up that pipeline did two things. It disrupted Russia's income and control, and at the same time it forced Germany to go somewhere else for their natural gas. Small war, that one I believe was a small war, and that's a really good example because only so many countries can blow up a very large reinforced concrete embedded buried pipeline inside an ocean or inside the sea. That's not an easy task. The problem is most people don't realize there's danger or there's a pattern until it hits them square in the face. So folks, just a little additional color to my first video on bad luck or small wars. Again, you notice a lot of the things I'm bringing up, derailments, they happen. The guys wanted to go on strike. Or was it an action? Nord Stream's really blatant because was it a malfunction in a pipeline? But nobody's going to admit to it, right? Iran had a fire in their lab. Everyone said, oh, centrifuge malfunction. And then we find out 5-6 years later, Israel was able to hack into the computers and overspun the centrifuges and made the fire happen. Israel never admitted to it. Someone else said that's what they did. Nobody knows. Again, I can't say. I don't see a lot of this stuff. Unlike you, I see it on the news, I hear it on the internet, I listen to it on the radio. Every now and then I'll come across something. Physically, I'll go to a location and see something. But we're only getting tidbits. But those are the things, in summary, those are the things I would be looking for if someone was executing a Cold War. Again, a small war. Spying, transport and comms, food and water disruptions, amenity disruptions, all for the creation of fear, panic, or anger to cause someone else to do something you want them to do. Now, who's the bad guy here? Anybody's guess. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this one. Thanks for joining me on this. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have any questions, if I can't answer them in the premiere, I will try to answer them in the comments below. Until next time, God bless, Godspeed, and I will see you later. Be safe out there. Take care.